Hi folks, how are you doing? In the third round of the World Championship rematch between Carlsen and Anand in Sochi, we had a very interesting game today, very exciting, and eventually it was a decisive result. So very interesting game today. Remember, in the last game, in the second round, Anand, the former world champion, was defeated. He suffered a crushing defeat against Carlsen. He was playing black then, so he was playing white with white pieces on the third round and was really willing to turn it around. So let's see what happened today. We had, of course, Carlsen with black pieces and Anand playing white. 1d4, of course. Anand plays 1d4 again. He certainly has more options here with 1d4 than playing against the Ruy Lopez, against the Berlin of Carlsen. Knight f6, c4, e6. This is much more expected for me by Magnus Carlsen. This is his normal repertoire with black pieces against his most serious opponents like Viswanathan. I mean, I think that g6 and Grunfeld stuff was meant to be like a diversion for Anand team, like he did last year's match in Chennai. He played, you may remember, the Karo Khan early in the match just to try to confuse the team of Viswanathan. So I think Grunfeld was serving the same purpose. Now he goes back to what I think is the main defense he has against 1d4, trying to play the Nimzo Indian. Anand says nay, knight f3, d5, knight c3. We have a very classical queen's gambit decline. Bishop e7 was played, bishop f4, one of the probably two main moves here again against again with the bishop g5, the most classical and variation having been played thousands of times between GMs. Carlsen just castles, e3, knight bd7. Of course, this is very theoretical. And Anand plays c5, a variation which has been and is being played really a lot lately. I mean, you know, the Petrosian Memorial in Moscow just finished today. It was being played at the same time that the World Championship match, partly, and this exact variation with all the forcing lines to be played, to be followed, has been discussed there lots of times, and by people like with both colors, by the way, by people like Leko, Kramnik, Aronian, Inarkiev, etc. So if there was a prize like opening of the month in the elite tournament or something stupid like that, probably this line would deserve the prize for November. This is very fashionable nowadays, it seems, between the top players. So c6 was played, bishop d3, b6, b4, a5, a3. This is very typical in this line. This formation, this structure, this has been played, as I said, by Aronian, Kramnik, Leko, etc. just a couple of days ago, basically in Moscow, some kilometers north in Russia, and this is very current theoretical position. Bishop a6 was played by Magnus Carlsen. Here he immediately gets rid of his bad bishop on c8. I mean, it looks really horrible with no perspectives of being developed, rather than being exchanged on a6 like he does. Bishop takes, rook takes, and here Anand had some choices, but he goes b5, an interesting move. There are some games here, and certainly we could see this was a preparation of Anand's team for sure, because he was blitzing out his moves. Of course, Carlsen knew this, must know this, but not probably in the same depth than Viswanathan did. Carlsen plays c takes, and c6 is played here, following the steps, by the way, of Aronian. Levon Aronian played this against Mickey Adams, the English GM in Bilbao 2013. He wasn't the first guy in the world to play this, but yes, the last one, last strong GM to try this line, sacrificing temporarily a pawn on b5 to advance his pawn to c6. Now, in fact, white has a passed pawn on c6 and seems to be creating some problems to black. The precise move is queen c8, which is what, of course, Magnus Carlsen played. Now, taking on d7 probably is not the greatest move of all time, because black is taking on c3 with a check. So c7 instead was played. Of course, this is theoretical, yet still theoretical, and well, White has established a strong passed pawn on c7, protected by this important bishop on f4, and this is his bet for the game. If this pawn is nursed and protected well enough, this could give White, Anand in this case, the victory. If not, well, White will probably lose it and wouldn't be in that of a great shape. Carlsen plays b4 here, and now knight b5 was played. The move, well, after thinking for a while here, Carlsen already, I mean, he knew probably this position, but not that well as Viswanathan. He plays a4. I guess one of his ideas, positional threats, would be to try to play b3, having a protected passed pawn on b3 of his own. Other options here, well, we have an old game where Georgiev, player from Bulgaria, if I'm not mistaken, played this knight e4 against Anatoly Karpov, the former world champion from Russia, in Dubai 2002, and here Karpov showed his class. He went on to win this complicated game after castling b takes a3 and played queen a4. Now g5, bishop g3 and g4 was played in Dubai there in 2002. Knight d2 and knight e1 and knight d2, quite complicated. Karpov gives up exchange on f1, and well, the queen went back, and after some complicated battle, Karpov won this game. An unbalanced position and a really interesting game. If you want to take a look at this, it was Karpov Georgiev Dubai 2002. Knight e4 was played in that game. And well, I think the point of White is that if Black just passes, says he plays h6, White really would like to play something like a4, cementing the position of this strong knight on b5, which by the way is defending the key of the White's position, the strong c7 passed pawn. And now this rook looks rather stupid on a6. It cannot go back to a7. It only can go to a8 to later go back to a6. So this would be some positional great edge for White. That's why a4 was played here by Carlsen. Now rook c1 is what Anand chose, and Carlsen plays knight e4. Still Anand was kind of blitzing out his move, so kudos to his team for preparing all this deep. Knight g5 was played, very interesting move. They are still following the steps of that Aronian Anand game, Aronian Adams game. I'm getting confused. Aronian Adams, Bilbao 2013. Here the point is, the interesting tactical point is that White isn't giving up a piece on g5, because if Black captures twice there is this very strong and crushing in fact move, knight to d6, and the queen is basically lost. The only place she can go to where she isn't captured on the spot is queen a8, but then we promote and Black can resign with a clear conscience. Instead, after knight g5, knight df6 was played by Carlsen, much more normal and natural, supporting his knight on e4, kind of trying to complete development. Anand exchanged on e4 and played f3. Still, Aronian Adams was played like this, so they must know, both players, you can argue, knew this game. Now rook a5, counter-attacking against the knight on b4, the unprotected white knight. And here is where Anand deviates from that game, where Aronian played, instead of f takes, which is what Anand is going to play, Aronian played queen e2 in that Bilbao game. After queen d7, f takes, rook c8. Note that that knight isn't going anywhere. E takes, a takes b4. Now Adams took on b5. Well, and after some moves, it was a good try by the Armenian GM, but Miki holded this position finally and got the draw. But here, instead, on the move number 20, Anand instead takes on e4 first. Rook takes b5, and his idea is to take on a4, breaking a little bit Black's pawn structure on the queen side. This was basically Black's serious hope for counterplay. This 3 against 2 on A and the B files. Now black only has a couple of doubled pawns on the B file. Of course he will later capture on A3, as we'll see, but this is activating the queen quite seriously with tempo, attacking the rook. I mean, no brainer here. Rook A5 is the move, and Queen C6. All white pieces are coordinated, well, all except the rook on H1, in protecting the strong C7 passer for white, and black still has to find out how to develop his F8 rook, for instance. And there is a difference certainly in the minor pieces activity. This bishop seems to be much better than the one on E7, and this is what is giving white a slight but uncomfortable edge for Magnus Carlsen here. Uncomfortable for Magnus Carlsen, comfortable edge for Anand, of course. The world champion took here on A3, and now Anand clarifies the center on D5. We're reaching a critical point here. Black has two options: to recapture with the pawn or with the rook. Magnus Carlsen took with the rook, with the idea, natural looking idea, to giving himself the chance to play Queen D7 and later finally put the other rook behind here on C8, blockading that C7 pawn. But as we're gonna see, this could be a dubious decision, as the rook isn't going to be participating anymore in the game. Anand here just took on B6, Queen D7, Vishy just castles, and Rook C8. Finally Carlsen succeeds in putting the rook on C8, blockading that pawn. But there is an interesting and funny fact about this rook on D5. We have this rook very centralized. I mean, when we learn the game of chess, they say try to put your pieces on the center because they can move to more places, more squares. But funnily enough, this rook is very centralized here, but can go to very little places. In fact, a couple of F5 and H5 squares. He cannot go anywhere else. And this is going to be a key to the game. This rook isn't going to be very effectively used anymore, and Anand will take full advantage of this fact. He just plays Rook C6, just I guess with the simple idea to double rooks on the C file, and putting black into a very uncomfortable and passive defensive position, in which basically he has no serious counterplay and really has an ugly position when you have to try not to be crushed right away with defensive moves, but really you don't have a serious counter chance. That's why I guess Magnus Carlsen tries to mud the waters, complicate matters with this strange looking G5 attacking the bishop. Well, Anand just goes back, bishop G3. It seems bishop E5 was even stronger, but now he went bishop B4, trying to get something going, trying to activate the pieces somehow. And now you can see the difference between this bishop and the one on B4. This bishop on E7 had to go to B4 with a strange maneuver looking really bizarre, and meanwhile this bishop on G3 is very comfortable defending the key pawn on C7. So bishop B4 with the idea of like rook FC1 isn't possible anymore right now because we have this bishop D2. Of course black is much better here, but instead Anand just puts the rook on A1, well, saying I'm going to attack your only hope basically of counter chance, this passed pawn on A3. And here Carlsen with a huge time trouble, I must say. In the final moves of this game, he was under 30 seconds literally, so he had serious time troubles in this game. Clearly Anand was in his preparation for the most part of this game, so once again kudos to his team of GMs. Carlsen plays bishop A5 here. Strange looking maneuver, but at least he's getting some attack, something going on. His bishop is somehow more active, but really this is not good. The position is already very tough for black. Anand just goes with the natural rook A6. Queen A6, keeps defending the rook on C6, and now he's attacking the one on A3, and also he has the idea of going to the B file, rook B8, and that would be all she wrote, as black has this very strange looking, and now we can say it clearly, bad rook on D5, centralized but really bad looking. It can't go almost anywhere, so the rook on D5 is basically decoration. Bishop takes C7 was played by Carlsen here. desperation. We can call this a blunder if we please so, but honestly speaking, black position was very tough already, under lots of huge pressure, and here the simple tactical move is to play queen c4, which Anand of course did. The point is that the c8 queen is hanging, the bishop cannot move, and the bishop is under huge fire with both the rook, the queen on the c file, and also the bishop from c7, which means that black is in no way getting away with that pawn, but he's losing the material instead, and this game is basically gone. They kept playing for some moves. e5, Carlsen tried to, well, complicate this a little bit, and after bishop takes, he sacrificed the exchange on e5. Pawn took, well, he's not losing the bishop anymore, but he sacrificed the exchange on e5. Okay, he played queen e7, maybe dreaming of taking on e5 and checkmating Anand, or, well, not checkmating, checking Anand on h2 if he was to fall asleep. But of course, here there are more than one way to win. e6 is what Anand plays, creating more threats against black king in this case, more tactical and concrete ideas. Carlsen went king f8, and among other moves, Anand chose here the simple rook c1, completely controlling everything, attacking with another piece on c7, which is basically gone at this point, and Carlsen resigned. Very unexpected, I must say, comeback for Viswanathan in the third game, very fastly. The Indian former world champion wins his game back against Magnus Carlsen. And by the way, as Tarjis Svinson, I hope not to be mispronouncing that, pointed out in Twitter, this is the first time Anand beats Carlsen in a classical chess game of chess in 1462 days. So it was a while since Carlsen was beaten by Anand. So there we go, the score is even once again, and we have a match. We have a very interesting match ahead. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.